Hey, have you ever been stalked and harassed on social media? Not fun. 3 out of 10. I didn't enjoy it when it happened to me. Have you ever been stalked by a foreign government? 4 out of 10. I didn't really enjoy it. Let's talk about it. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Since when has Lolita decided to make clickbaiting part of her job? Unfortunately, I'm still not clickbaiting. I have not stooped that low. I am what the kids say has deep lore. So let's talk about the time that a foreign government stalked and harassed me for 3.5 years. So it all started at the end of 2013, right around the beginning of 2014. I had just gotten out of the hospital because I had my spinal fusion, and then things went horrifically wrong for that entire year of 2013. I was in the hospital, I was out of the hospital. Oh, had to go back to the hospital again. I almost looked like this guy. Around the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, I finally qualified to get a skin graft. Why was I getting a skin graft, you ask? I'm so glad you did ask that. That is because I had a hole in my back due to complications from the spinal fusion. That's a whole other story in itself. So around this time, this is right before the skin graft surgery. I'm chilling in my bed, wound vac on my lower back. Wound vacs suck. If you have to have a wound vac, you know you've hit like rock bottom medical-wise. So I'm chilling on the bed, trying not to move, because if you move, you break that seal, and then you hear the beeping forever, and it drives you up the wall. It drives you batty. So I'm trying not to move. I'm doing basically the mannequin challenge in my bed, and I get a tweet. I don't have Twitter anymore, but I get a tweet essentially saying, hey, can we communicate with you? Can we chat with you about some serious matters in your mother country? My mother country? I hardly knew her.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I only was there for like 2 years, and I never heard from them after my adoption. What could they possibly want with us? They wouldn't tell me in the original tweet. Eventually, I think I gave them my brother's email. Because mind you, I was like 13, 14 years old at the time. I was not going to deal with strangers on the internet. I was going to wait till I was at least 17 and a half to start doing that. They get in contact with my brother, and my brother is basically relaying all this information to my mother, Ruth, and me. They had said that it was the Russian government and their media. All 2 channels. Sorry if that's insensitive. I actually don't know how many TV stations you guys have. It might be 4. This is a dumb question. Do Russians and Siberians, do you guys like have YouTube? Because I don't think you have Instagram.
You are made of stupid.
I'm not really well versed on the social media platforms you guys are allowed to have. So essentially, they had said to my brother that they found my birth parent, at least my birth mother. Daddy was still off, fetching that milk. This could be a really big deal to someone who cares, but I had stopped caring about knowing who my family was years before all this. I really did not care anymore. So we told my brother, just tell them, that's great and all, thank you for putting in all this effort, but we're good, thanks. And of course, like a very, very polite system, they respected my wishes and they moved on with their lives. That's what I would say if it wasn't literally Russia. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Russian adoption had been put on hold around this time, and I don't think they've started back up again. That's my business. So we just told them thank you, but no thank you. We don't wish to have any contact with these people. But they said, yeah, okay. Thank you for your time. And then we didn't really hear anything for about a week or so after that. And by that point, I was able to go outside. I was able to get some fresh sunlight. Like the little lizard I am, I was bedridden forever. It was like on the edge of the boonies. That's kind of like what I would call it. Not a lot of foot traffic, no sidewalks. Where I lived, it was very, very country. And my childhood home had a extremely long driveway because the house sat really, really far back on the land. And this car had come up, and we did not know who it was, and we don't get many visitors. We're kind of introverted. I don't feel like talking to people. I'm also not feeling that great, with a hole in my back. So I go up onto the porch. We had a screened-in porch, so I went up to the porch, and I was hanging out with, it wasn't Ruth, it was one of my older sisters who was visiting. And I think my mother went out to see who they were, but she was already gardening at the time. So she goes out, and she's like, hi. And it was a woman and I believe 2 little girls that might have been her daughters, and they were complimenting the house. They were complimenting just how beautiful the gardening was. This was around summer, springtime. Everything was in full bloom. My mother is a legitimate gardener. So I guess they started out just asking normal questions about the hydrangeas and the roses and the lilacs. And then they started asking like some weird things. They were asking like how much the house cost, were we the home owners, were there any disabled children there? And that's when my other older sister, who I think was still living at the house at the time, graduating I think that year, basically told them to kick rocks. You're done. And they did. And I was very curious, a curious little kid. And so I went inside and I went towards the front of the house, because not a bay window area, but kind of like a bay window area. And I saw there was not only the car that had pulled up with this family inside, but across the way, it was like, not hunting grounds, but people used them for hunting grounds. Because again, I live in the boonies. You weren't technically supposed to use it for that, but it was just fields. It was grass, you know, grass. And there were 2 black like SUVs, like the ones that you'd see in 80s cop dramas. They weren't just parked there so they can go hunting the turkeys. They were just parked and staring at the house. All's going well with the wound vac and the surgery with the skin grafts. All that stuff's going great. So I'm able to then go out into public and go to stores when it's time to do grocery shopping for the month. We take a lovely trip to Walmart. Again, I live in like the tiniest town ever, so it was one of those situations where going to Walmart makes like your whole week, because that's the only thing you can do, because all there are Walmarts and parking lots. I digress. So I'm in Walmart, helping my mom pick out the groceries, minding my younger sisters, making sure they don't run into traffic. Clearly chilling, trying to convince mom to buy things that we don't actually need. When this couple comes up to us, 2 men this time, and they have very thick Russian accent, and they are not nice. One of them is giving very journalist energy. The other one is giving very sniper energy. And mind you, my mother is 5'2" on a good day. She's a tiny little lady, and this was a weekend, so we didn't have Ruth at the time. I was like 13 years old, and my sisters are even younger than that. They essentially call all of us out by name, all of us, our government name, tell us to go with them to the parking lot where they have cars waiting because they said so. So we say no. Luckily, they left before security had to get involved, or they saw security approaching and they left. Rather quickly after that, we get in contact with my brother and we're like, hey, so this happened at Walmart today. And he's like, yeah, they're starting to like hound my emails and calling my business too. What is going on? After a lot of family discussions, a lot of sitting around the dining room table, trying to think of a game plan, we did what we should have did
10 minutes ago.
We just reach out to the numbers that they gave us and want to ask them, why won't you leave us alone? The next thing we receive is an email with a link to a Russian talk show that's like, I guess, was really well known over in Russia. Like an hour-long segment, and the majority of that hour-long segment is talking about me. Not only that, underneath that link are more links to Russian newspapers and magazine articles also discussing this breaking worldwide news. What could the news possibly be? I live in the middle of nowhere. I don't do anything. I'm boring. You might want to sit down for this one. So there was a lot of translating going on our end, because they didn't even send us anything with English translation. I guess they assumed that I kept up with my First Nations language. I didn't. Apparently, the government and the media had to get involved to save me from SA allegations going on and being pimped out by my current family for financial gain. Yes, they did cover the whole fact of, the wheelchair parts. And then we watched the video, which said this whole thing about me getting pimped out and SA'd for money at the age of 13 and possibly younger was apparently world news, and everyone in the world knew about it, but they were the ones to bring it to the forefront to protect me. Let's talk about my mother, the one that actually birthed me. The talk show essentially centered around her and the children she had after me. She claims that she had to give me up because she had no financial means of taking care of me, and she had no help from the father, who she said was her husband. This talk show, the best way I can word it, it's like Jerry Springer, Dr. Phil, and The View if they came together to make one really, really weird talk show. So the host tries asking my mother questions about me that the media maybe wouldn't know, or it's not known to the public. And she gets my own birthday incorrect. Unknown fact about me, I actually have multiple birthdays. Only one is known to the general public, and that was the one that she used. Well, Lolita, don't you go by your actual birthday? And your mother would know when she birthed you, right? It's like she was there. I think so too, considering she didn't even give the year, and she gave the birthday that the American family picked after they brought me to the States. This lady is clearly not who she claims to be. So the talk show part, it was basically just this woman wanting, I guess, to reach out. All this was happening around the time Netflix had picked up the very first movie I was ever in. And apparently, I guess Russia thought that that movie was doing numbers on Netflix's circuit. Newsflash, it wasn't. For that entire movie, I got paid as the lead like $200 8 years later. And luckily, it seemed like no one was on this lady's side, even if she was really my mother. All in all, we told my brother and we told the translator to tell the lady to kick rocks, essentially, right? Well, the Russian government basically said, you think this is over, big dog? You think this was a one-hitter quitter? Put them up round 2. They start harassing my school, harassing my little sister's school, harassing all of my hospital visits to the point where I had to go under an alias because they were all trying to get in when my family wasn't there. The field I told you about, where people were like turkey hunting and stuff, there were more cars, more of those black SUVs with cameras. They weren't shy about it, taking pictures every second they could. And this went on for 3 years. More articles were coming out at the time, being like published by the Russian press, the Russian media, saying that they were working with the government to save me. I had not as much involvement in all this. I was too busy trying to heal from a massive surgery and trying to also just keep my sanity during all this, and also having to get pulled out of my middle school years. I had to basically homeschool because they kept harassing everyone. Even when things were dwindling down towards the end, they were just sort of just dealing with my brother at that time, I still had to move school districts entirely. Half of the reason was because the Russians, as we just so eloquently put them, not just because they were bothering us, but also because I was going through a lot of bullying at my old school district. It had gotten to a point where I had to just restart most of my social media. I didn't have a huge social media presence when I was in middle school. I had an iPad at the time. I didn't get my first actual cell phone with a camera on it until high school. My brother says every now and then he would get emails or phone calls from people essentially saying that they were still watching the family, but I never saw anything. The whole reason I'm even talking about this now is because I was talking to some friends a couple days ago about this situation and how funny it is that they thought this really tiny indie project that was 90% volunteers, it didn't make any huge waves. They took that as their opportunity versus me actually living in Los Angeles and growing a huge social media following with great people and trying to pursue everything now as an adult. About that talk show, it's also really funny. They kept using the footage from the movie that had come out at the time that I was in. They kept framing it in a way like it was their footage because they never mentioned my big acting thing being a movie. They kept saying the theatrical productions that I was in, like The Nutcracker, was my big break in America. They would only choose footage from the film that looked like it could be what you'd see as B-roll for documentaries. They never framed it like the people who were acting as my parents were actors. They were framing it like they were the parents. All in all, nowadays, being 2025, my family and I, we do get a good laugh about the era of the Russians essentially harassing us. There were no threats aimed directly at me, but I don't know what my brother was going through. He never really worded to me what were in those emails, what those phone calls truly consisted of, because I was really young at the time. Scariest moment was that Walmart interaction. Go with them, get in the car, like we did not have a choice. Oh, remember when I mentioned how with Russian adoptions and fostering in America was put on hold? They used me and one other boy, I believe in Texas, as the like one of the big reasons for that. But yeah, that was something that happened many, many years ago. And I giggle about it now, but that was actually a really scary time for me. All that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. In the description box below, I have a bunch of coupon codes, my website, my books, I have all those things for you to check out, as well as all my other social media links. Hit me up on any of those links if you would like to chat and get to know me better. We also have a little community over on Patreon, so thank you so much to my patrons for subscribing and hanging out with me over there every month. Comment down below what you would like to see next. Give this video a like if it intrigues you about foreign governments harassing a family. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video one more time, and I will see you all